Madam Director, for your testimony. Congratulations on your bipartisan confirmation vote. And thank you for working with the President to put forward a budget that will help grow our economy, but do it in a way that's more inclusive, so we have greater prosperity and greater shared prosperity. And I just want to emphasize a couple points in the budget that have been covered already, but I think they bear repeating. First of all, the initiative to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. The senator from Florida was talking about how we can make some savings in some of these programs. We could save the Medicare system money by giving Medicare the ability to negotiate the price of prescription drugs. Isn't that true?
Some estimates are $600 billion, as high as $800 billion in savings.
Right. So this is a win-win, right? We can reduce the cost of prescription drugs for American consumers, and we can save money in Medicare.
Correct.
I also applaud the provisions in the budget to reduce the cost of quality child care. This is something that is hitting every American family. We need to get on top of this. We have proposals that we presented here in the Congress. Unfortunately, our Republican colleagues have not joined us in supporting those measures. If they did, we could get this done right away. I also, continue to listen to my Republican colleagues on the deficit issue, and at the same time they talk about the deficit, they're opposing the measures in this budget to increase revenue by asking the biggest multinational corporations to pay more by closing international tax loopholes. Isn't that how you do it in the budget?
That is correct.
And don't you ask billionaires and very wealthy people to contribute more to the country?
Correct.
Right. So, people want to have this both ways. I was here in this committee when Republicans passed a $2 trillion tax cut, mostly for the very wealthy and big corporations, that increased our deficit. And now today, I hear complaints about the deficit, but opposition to provisions to raise funds by asking the very wealthy to pay a little bit more. I want to also commend you, especially with respect to some of the education investments in this budget. One of the things I've tried to do for many, many years was to have full funding for our schools, especially our neediest schools, through Title I. And in this budget, I think you would double the allotment for Title I compared to what we just passed in the omnibus. Is that correct?
We go a little further. We asked for about $19 billion more between discretionary and mandatory. But I want to thank you and everyone else for the $1 billion investment in Title I. We had not seen that level of increase since I've worked on that program for many years. So thank you.
Well, thank you for pushing that and the President. We've got to do even more, and I applaud you for putting some mandatory funding in. I think this may be the first time ever we've seen a President propose mandatory funding. My view is our education funding should be as certain as funding for other mandatory programs because we need to make sure that our kids in our schools know that money will be there year for year at the levels that are necessary. Let me just now turn to the issue of the apportionment process. And one of the things I work to do on a bipartisan basis is to improve accountability in the budget process by requiring the executive to report on the apportionment, the spending and timing of spending of monies that Congress has appropriated. And you're moving forward on that process, are you not?
We are. We met the first timeline. The Appropriations and Budget Committees have access to the system.
Thank you. No, I know no executive really likes Congress to interfere in this way. I don't see it as interference. I see it as a very important public disclosure process. I was glad that this committee supported that provision on a bipartisan basis years ago, and we included this provision, as you know, in the omnibus. And I want to remind people that this would have been really important during the Trump administration's time when they withheld money for weapons for Ukraine. So for months, they secretly withheld money that this Congress appropriated to help in the defense of Ukraine. In fact, they withheld it for so long that they violated the law. That's what the GAO found, that they violated the law by withholding monies that have been appropriated by the Congress. And I think as we reflect on the current moment, in Ukraine. It's important to remember that episode, and I am pleased we now have in place measures that would address that issue through the disclosure process. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Van Hollen. Senator Lujan.